everybody! Welcome to the Good Evening Kitties podcast, a Tales from the Crypt review. My name is Melissa, your ghostess with the mostest, and today's episode is Season 2, Episode 14, Lower Berth. Today I have a special guest with me, my mom. Hi!
Hi!
I thought I'd have my mom in since this episode is about the birth story of the Cryptkeeper. It's kind of an iconic episode for the whole Tales from the Crypt series. So I thought I'd have her in, and so we just got done watching the episode. What'd you think, all in all? You don't watch a lot of Tales from the Crypt, right? So
No.
The
only thing I ever do is listen to your podcast now.
Yeah.
But I liked it.
Yeah.
It was a little gory.
Yeah, well.
Would you say it was clean compared to a lot of them?
So I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the episode here. As always, John Kassir does the voice of the Cryptkeeper, and Danny Elfman does the theme song. This episode was directed by Kevin Yeager, who also directed Hellraiser Bloodline. The screenplay is by Fred Decker. It stars Louis Arquette, who was also in the movie Tango and Cash, Stefan Garash, who was in the movie Carrie, and Mark Rolston, who was in the movie Aliens. This episode aired July 3rd, 1990, and the description on the box here says, "Lullaby and good fright with this revealing story of the Cryptkeeper's birth. It's a tale from the crib." Ooh, so many puns. Okay, so this episode starts out with the Cryptkeeper and hanging out, and he's got a little doll. And I kind of like this part anyway, because it's real quick, but he's got this little rag doll, and he's talking about how cute it is, and as he is, he's raising this hammer up, like he's going to hit the doll, and then he notices that we're there, and he's like, oh, sorry. I thought that part was kind of funny. But yeah, so he always does what he does in the beginnings here, and he always intros the episode. He talks about how this one's important to him because it's his birth story, and he sets the book down on the doll's face and opens it up to get started here. So it opens up and it shows the EC Comics cover here, and it opens up in one of my favorite things, the Carnival Freak Show. It's just kind of opening up. There's carnival music and Fire Eater and all the stuff like that. It starts with Mr. Feely, and he's doing the carnival barking to get the freak show going.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, step right up and be prepared to gasp, to swoon, to feast your disbelieving eyes on the most astounding array of freaks and oddities ever gathered together under one tent. See the piteous products of God's twisted sense of humor. View with your very eyes the alarming consequences of nature's most heinous miscalculations. Witness, if you dare, the results of the most unnatural inbreeding. Man or monster, human or horror, you be the judge and jury.
The name of the show that I saw is Feely's Fantastic Fairway of Freaks. So he's bringing everyone in to talk about it, and I also saw that when I watched it, it's 10 cents admission.
Oh, see, I didn't. So you notice all those little details that I don't.
It was 10 cents to get in, so I'm like, oh well. But yeah, so he's talking about the different ones that are in there. There's a fat lady, and there's.
No, he called her a bovine beauty.
Yeah, a bovine beauty, which is like, at first you're like, that's mean, but then you're like, well, he said beauty. So.
Yeah.
And so her name's Fanny, of course, and she's 450 pounds. And then he's also got like a family of little people, and then some other people in there. And then his main attraction is Enoch, the two-faced man, and that's basically what this episode is mostly about, is Enoch's life. And so it goes through the freak show here, and they're introducing everyone, and they get over to Enoch, and before they do, his owner, which I don't think it's his dad. I guess he just bought
I just
him.
assumed it was his dad.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's this guy who basically takes care of him. I think his name's Mr. Sickles.
Yep.
Mr. Sickles. And he basically, he's got to get Enoch in the cage, because that's where he lives, is this cage that they open the curtains up so you can see him during the show. So he's looking for Enoch, and he always keeps calling him a naughty boy and hitting this poor creature. And
beating him with a belt for no reason.
No reason. And just keeps beating him up. So he's looking for Enoch, and Enoch's just kind of,
Enoch got out of the cage, and he wasn't supposed to be out of the cage.
Yeah, he got out of the cage, and
prior to the show, and he had to get him back in there.
And he still can't. He can never figure out how he got out.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming.
I don't know.
Maybe he just cons someone to let him out.
That's all I can think of.
Yeah.
After seeing.
Yeah, the little girl.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just like, all right. So Enoch gets thrown back in his cage, and it's just a real rickety cage, and he has newspapers all over because they couldn't be bothered to teach him how to use the bathroom like a proper person. And so, they open it up to introduce Enoch.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, look upon Enoch, the two-faced man.
Everyone's staring at him and how hideous he is.
Yeah, he's shy about it. He covers up the other side of his face.
Yeah, I noticed that too, which I thought was kind of sad because he knows he's a freak because of this extra face. And so he's...
Yeah, I'm assuming that he was a Siamese twin.
Yeah.
But only the head developed.
Probably, yeah. Or like he absorbed his twin or something.
But you can tell because whenever he smiles or does anything, the other face does it too.
Yeah.
So it shares the same brain.
Which I thought was a cool effect that even as like he's smiling, the other part of his face is kind of moving around, and
the teeth are different. The teeth are more teeth on the other. He's got a lot of teeth on his normal face, but then the other face has a lot more teeth than that.
But yeah, the teeth and all the gums and everything is done really well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he likes to cover up the other face because he's kind of ashamed of it.
Yeah, kind of feel really sorry for him.
Yeah, and everyone's just like, oh my gosh, he's so what a freak, And so later that night, Mr. Feely is talking to Mr. Sickles and basically saying, Enoch needs to be in his cage at all times, especially before the show. And Mr. Sickles is like, yeah, I know, I was trying to get him in there, he keeps getting out for some reason. Mr. Feely tells Mr. Sickles that if he doesn't watch what he's doing, he's going to put them out on the streets and stuff like that, or, get rid of him in the act, even though Enoch is kind of like one of his biggest attractions. And so Mr. Sickles is like, why would you do that? And he's like, well, Enoch is dying. And apparently Mr. Sickles paid the company doctor to make it seem like whenever Enoch got his checkup that he wasn't sick. And apparently...
Well, yeah, because Mr. Sickles, if you remember, he told... What's the other guy's name?
Feely.
Mr. Feely. That you can't let us go because you need us. We're the ones that make your money.
Yeah.
And then that's whenever Mr. Feely said, no, I already know that you paid,
He's like, I know he's dying and you're trying to cover it up.
Right.
And so he's like, we'll see how it goes. We'll let Enoch be in the show for, however long he lives, but you need to watch keeping these secrets from me because Enoch is pretty much Mr. Sickles', meal ticket kind of thing. And so Enoch is dying. I mean, it could be anything. It could be just...
Yeah, they never say.
It could be hydroencephalitis or something, something because of his abnormalities. And so in between some of this, too, there's another man who's been kind of hanging around, walking around the carnival and keeping an eye on stuff.
Yeah, so as soon as Mr. Feely leaves, then he's right there, that other guy.
Yeah. So first, I think he goes... Does he go... Yeah, that guy's watching.
He's right outside the stagecoach.
That's right. Okay, so after this...
The lower berth.
Yeah, so after this happens, Mr. Sickles doesn't know how to deal with this problem, so he goes back over to Enoch for a little more beating, telling him he's a naughty boy, even though Enoch didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, because of him,
Yeah, so he goes and
I got yelled at.
Yeah, he goes and hits Enoch, and then he comes back for dinner, and he's sitting in his cool little carnival wagony thing. He lights the lantern, and as it lights up, there's a man sitting in front of him and scares the crap out of him.
I see you prefer a lower berth.
Who are you? How'd you get in here?
The door, Mr. Sickles. Call me unconventional.
And his name is Zachary Kling. He apparently is a doctor. He's basically propositioning Mr. Sickles, saying that he won a artifact in a poker game with a man from St. Louis.
Are you a card player, Mr. Sickles?
Now and again.
Myself, I must confess to a certain, shall we say, zealousy for games of chance.
And ended up getting this mummy. Her name is Myrna, and Myrna was 16 and apparently didn't accept the advances of the pharaoh back in Egypt a long time ago, and they ended up burying her alive. So she's like perfectly preserved, and she has this jeweled necklace on the front of her.
Perfectly mummified.
Yeah, it looked pretty good. Mm-hmm. So he's basically wanting to make a deal with Mr. Sickles. And so he's like, how about we do a 60-40 split, and you can have Myrna, and we'll split the money, and the jewelry on her is fake, and it's basically just her as a sideshow attraction. And so Mr. Sickles takes him up on it after they go out and take a look at the money.
Yeah, because he says he's a doctor, and he can't be seeing too much, because Mr. Sickles is like, why wouldn't you just do it yourself? And more, and he's like, well, because I'm a doctor and I can't really be.
Well, and I think another thing too,
doing stuff like that.
Well, I think another thing he was implying too maybe was that Mr. Feely doesn't like him. Like maybe there was something wrong that happened in the past, so he stays out of Mr. Feely's way. So he's like, let's get this guy in, because the other Mr. Sickles is pretty suspicious.
Well, yeah, it kind of makes you realize that this guy's hoax.
Yeah, as were a lot of freak shows back then. Sometimes they would take like a baby doll and put a turtle shell on it and stick it in a thing of water and be like, it's a turtle boy. Oh. And then people would come and pay money to see him.
Well, I guess anything to make some money.
Get out and, see some weird stuff. So not all of them were always, freaks.
It's weird how people want to see weird stuff like that.
Oddities and all that. And so he ends up taking Myrna and using her in the show, and I'm surprised Mr. Feely actually wasn't suspicious, because the fact that he just got done yelling at Mr. Sickles to watch himself, and then all of a sudden he's like, look, I have this mummy, be like, well, where did you get this mummy? But I guess he was able to talk him into it. Myrna is part of the show now. She's got her own banner and everything like that, and everyone's real excited to see her, and so everyone's paying all this money.
Yeah, they're paying all this money to come see her.
Sickles and Kling are, splitting the money 60-40. Things are going good. Everyone's really interested in it. And while this is going on, Enoch kind of gets a glimpse of Myrna, and he immediately is smitten. Mm-hmm. And he thinks she is gorgeous dead lady. And and so
I don't know that he realizes.
He probably just like, oh, she's sleeping a lot. Mm-hmm. So every time she gets revealed for a new show, he's there watching, and he just thinks she's so beautiful, So
hey, at least now he's not the big freak part.
That's true.
He's not the big.
Well, it probably takes some of the pressure off too, because he's not like the center of attention.
Right. Yes, he's not the main attraction anymore.
She's the big one now, so he can kind of just. I still think it's. I don't know.
Well, he's still kept in his cage.
Yeah.
He's still, but you don't hear them beat on him like
yeah.
they did,
Enoch is sleeping one day in his cage, and he wakes up to see this little girl. Who we find out later her name is Elizabeth, and she's got her little doll, and she's not at all afraid of him.
I thought that was
I think it's kind of sweet though.
It is sweet.
But yeah, so right away.
How old do you think she is? 10 maybe?
Yeah, maybe 10. And she's got a doll, and Enoch right away is trying to hide his face and trying not to scare her, I guess, and he doesn't really speak much English, but he's able to show her that he wants her to open up the curtains behind him, behind Elizabeth, because he wants to see Myrna. She eventually gets the hint, and so then he's excited because then the curtain's open, he can see Myrna.
But before that, she's showing him her baby doll, and he's like all interested in that, and then he's kind of playing with that, and she's letting him touch it.
Yeah.
And then that's when she realizes he wants her to open up the curtain.
Yeah, and so he's really interested in her and, getting her to open the curtain. And so her mom, Elizabeth's mom, shows up, looking for her daughter, and she's mad, and she's like, Elizabeth, what are you doing with that freak, and all that stuff. And so Elizabeth...
And the mom don't even come in to get her. She just tells her, come here.
Just come here. Just let it,
Most time moms would be like running in there.
She's too afraid to even go in there. The kid runs over real quick, says bye, and gives him the doll. So now he has this little doll to kind of hold on to and stuff, which he likes, because he likes to pretend like he has a little family, which was nice. I'm glad he got a little doll. I can't believe...
Which is the doll at
in the beginning. Yeah.
That they show that's how he got the doll.
Yeah, how
the
doll.
Now you figure out that's how he got the doll.
I mean, yeah, it's sweet and everything, but then it's like, I can't believe they just never put anything in that cage with him, though. It's like he has nothing to do all day long. Mm-mm. Now Mr. Sickles is back, and...
Yeah, for some reason he's a naughty boy again. Yeah. I don't know what he did this time.
He's just mad at life. And he sees that he has a doll, and Mr. Sickles is like, give that to me. And Enoch is not having that. He immediately growls at him, and he's holding the doll and staring at Myrna. And then that's when Mr. Sickles realizes that Enoch has a bit of a crush on her, which he thinks is ridiculous, which, I mean, it kind of is, but in the situation you're in. And so
he's making fun of him because he wants to have a family.
Yeah, have a family.
He's like, oh, you want a family, huh?
Have a family with Myrna.
Not going to happen.
Yeah, like you'll never be normal or whatever. And so while he's talking to Enoch, he looks down at the newspapers that are in his cage, and he sees that Myrna is actually stolen. It wasn't won in a card game.
Oh yeah, the paper that's in the bottom of the cage. Yeah, he sees the article about it.
He was stolen off of like a boat in New Orleans or something like that. And they're really, they're looking for it. It's a priceless artifact. And so now Sickles is like, oh, great, now I'm going to get arrested and thrown under the bus, and all this because I didn't realize it was stolen. And so he immediately heads over to Dr. Kling, who's playing a poker game, and tells him they need to talk. So they end up going back into the tent to talk this out. And while they go back in there, Mr. Sickles grabs a pair of...
hedge trimmers.
Yeah, hedge trimmers. And he, like, pushes Mr. Kling up against the wall, and he's kind of like, you know, what are you trying to pull? She was stolen. You didn't tell me. And everything. Start explaining. And so he basically tells them, like, okay, yeah, I lied. The jewelry, the necklace on Myrna is actually very, very expensive. It's not a prop, like I said. And apparently if you try to take it off, you will be castrated.
Mr. Sickles! You're not listening to me. I hired a man to take that necklace off. That night I found him. He was castrated.
And
yeah, whoever tries to take him off will not be able to have children.
Yeah.
And that the one guy, a guy who did try to do it, they found him castrated then the next day or something.
Which is a little rough. Like, there's a difference of not being able to have kids to being like, oh, because you're castrated. That's why you can't have. It's not just like you're infertile.
Right.
They will literally cut them off. So Dr. Kling is like, you know, someone I already knew who I hired to do this got castrated. I think he was hoping that Sickles would do it. I don't know. I guess, you know, he could get the jewelry off Sickles.
Well, and it was kind of funny because he says, oh, whoever takes the family jewels loses
their family jewels.
Loses their family jewels.
Yeah, it is a good line. They kind of get in a scuffle, and Mr. Sickles ends up stabbing Dr. Kling with the hedge clippers and kills him. And so now, I mean...
Which that was an accident.
It was, but it's like, who turns around like that? Like, like it's just like...
Well, I mean, anything could have happened because he went in there with them.
Well,
knowing
yeah,
that he could, you know,
he knew something
would have done
maybe
something if the guy wouldn't have come forward with stuff.
So Dr. Kling is dead, and it's 20 minutes to showtime, and so he's like, ah, crap. And so he's gonna try to cover it up, and so later he packs up a little case and gets ready to leave, and he's gonna try to blame it on Enoch. So he heads in there, he unlocks Enoch's cage to kind of make it seem like, oh, he got out again, and he puts the head clippers in there. And he tells Enoch that he's been bad, and how dare you get out? And it's like, this poor creature's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, he's like, what?
I've been sitting here with my doll. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he's laying down with the doll, all happy.
Yeah. And so he heads over and is kind of, Mr. Sickles heads over, and he's kind of talking about the mummy, and he wants to take the jewels off the mummy, and he's going to take off with those.
Yeah, because he obviously doesn't believe that will happen.
Yeah, he's like, I just want these jewels, and then I can use that to get whatever money I need, and I can leave.
Although, think about it. If the jewels were worth that much, why wouldn't they have already been off? If
it
wouldn't have been for some reason that people were afraid
if
to do it.
Dr. Kling really did know that they were rich or expensive, but he don't care. He just wants to get out of this situation, I think, and especially now that he killed Dr. Kling, I think he's just really panicked. So he takes the jewels off, and right when he's doing that, Enoch grabs the hedge clippers, and he's just mad. He's so mad that he's messing with his girl. And so he runs over, castrates Mr. Sickles with the hedge clippers right into him and just leaves the hedge clippers in there. When he does that, Myrna's eyes open. They're all milky and gross.
Yeah, I don't know if they're really open if you just see through the eyelids.
Yeah.
I guess they open. They almost look like you just see through the eyelids.
I think it's just her eyeballs are dead.
And so you can't really tell if she's really alive
now
or not, really.
But I mean, maybe with the curse, if you take the necklace off, she comes to life.
Well, it didn't happen until he stabbed him.
But the one thing I also was wondering is, you're supposed to be castrated if you take the necklace. But would Mr. Sickles have been castrated either way? Because Enoch, like if Enoch wouldn't have done the thing with the hedge clippers, would he still have been castrated because of the curse?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it just means somebody, somehow you're going to get castrated by somebody, something's going to happen.
Or if it would have happened anyway. And so, you know, cuts later in the Barker, Mr. Feely is bringing everyone in to come see everyone that's already been in the show. So they get over to Enoch and they want to show him, and when they open up the curtains, he's not there. And right away, Mr. Feely is like, okay, let's...
Oh, crap.
Yeah, he's like, let's...
And everybody's in the audience going, oh, they did this, and, you know, they lied.
Because you got to get your money's worth, you know? And they're like, come on. And so he's like, okay, well, we'll move on to Myrna then.
Inside that very tomb, hieroglyphics tell a tragic tale. Once young and beautiful, she spurned Pharaoh's advances and was condemned to death. Wrapped in ceremonial windings, she was buried alive and placed in this very self-same sarcophagus, which has been her home for the last 4,000 years. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I command you to look upon Myrna, the Egyptian mummy.
And so he goes over and opens up the mummy, and when he does, he sees, what does he see?
Oh, I don't remember now.
Right there.
Oh, yeah. How can I forget that? Sorry. That's right. He sees Mr. Sickles with the hedge trimmers in his gut, and everybody's screaming and practically throwing up.
It's pretty gross. And he's in Mummy's sarcophagus.
Yeah, he's in the coffin.
Got the hedge clippers on. He's all covered in blood. And
so Enoch's gone and took his woman.
Yep. Enoch is gone. And he took off with the baby doll. And so now, cuts to a year later.
Yeah, so now cuts to 1 year later mark.
And Mr. Feely is still kind of, not really, I guess, I mean, he had to recover from a couple losses to his freak show, so I think that kind of hit him.
It makes you wonder how he managed to stay in them, because that was the 2 highlights.
Yeah, so he would have...
What other highlights did he get, you think? I don't know. If he got anything.
It would have been down. He would have lost some money for a while.
Yeah,
because all he had was the fat lady.
I was kind of surprised it was still going on.
Yeah. Well, because, I mean, they got other stuff, too, but, I mean, the main freak show,
compared to those 2
you got the fat lady and a little family.
Yeah, well,
and that's pretty much it, you know. So the sheriff comes up to Mr. Feely, and Mr. Feely's like, well, I have, thinks it's about a permit for the circus, and he's like, no. Basically, we found something in this cave nearby. You were here a year ago, and, you had some issues with your sideshow, and so we figured this belonged to you. And so basically, a young boy in the town found this cave, so they take Mr. Feely over to the cave, and it smells really bad. In the cave.
I imagine.
And Mr. Feely can hardly even stand to look at it without wanting to throw up. And so in this cave, there's it's like dripping water, and there's like this table set up, and like a little kind of home, but it's gross. Mr. Feely can't handle it. Basically what happened was Enoch ran off with Myrna to this cave, and they kind of had a little family there for a little bit, and then they died in each other's arms, which is kind of sweet. I mean, Myrna, I think, is already dead anyway.
But, so we don't know if she was alive for a little bit or not, because...
Well, and if you notice, actually, she still has the necklace. She has the necklace back on.
Well, he put it back on her, I'm sure.
So I don't know if that would, make her eyes close.
But they're all snuggled.
Yeah, and they're all snuggled, and they died together, and, and so it's kind of sweet. I was like, oh, And so they're like, oh, that's horrible. And so they're like, I can't believe that's so gross.
Yeah, and so he runs out, Mr. Feely.
Mr. Feely and the cops, and I guess later they'll come back and get the bodies, I don't know. And so then it kind of pans over to this little area, and with the doll is a little baby Cryptkeeper.
He's cute without a nose.
Yeah, he had no nose.
The nose looks just like it does.
Yep,
as he's older.
He was born dead. And
almost looks like Chucky.
Yeah, a little bit. And he's sitting there kind of cooing and everything with the doll, and technically the Cryptkeeper had to raise himself pretty much.
Right, yeah.
Ever since
which,
he was...
I
mean, which explains why he's as crazy as he is, I think.
I'm trying to figure out how all that, but...
Explains, yeah. I know, the fact that this dead mummy and a two-faced man had a baby, and somehow she was able to birth it.
Yeah, so it's like, did she become alive for a little bit and then die again with him, or what?
Did her stomach just grow, and then he just kind of came out? So yeah, it is pretty crazy.
He's got to be about 6 months old if he's sitting up like he's sitting
up. Yeah. So he's hanging out there, and he's got a little hair. And yeah, so the little baby Cryptkeeper was left behind. That's the end of the episode. And it cuts to the Cryptkeeper crying. And he's
saying sorry, he loves this episode.
Yeah.
It brings tears to his eyes. He's blowing his nose.
Yeah. He's blowing his nose.
Sickening nose.
He's got his little doll. And he's kind of in between crying and laughing hysterically because he's crazy. About how this is a story about his mom and dad, and it's so touching for him.
I didn't pay attention. He threw the doll away that at the end.
He was like, He just threw it away, so...
And he says, wasn't I a cute little tyke?
And so he talks all about that, and that's pretty much the end of the episode there. There is a little bit of trivia here from IMDb. One of the trivia things is, a rarity for the Tales from the Crypt story, in that the Cryptkeeper appears during the main story, not just in bumpers, as this tale recounts how his parents met. This tale establishes that the Cryptkeeper has half Egyptian descent. So he's half Egyptian.
So he's half Egyptian.
And,
he's half something.
Cryptkeeper, you're so punny. The best Cryptkeeper pun is...
As for Enoch and Myrna, I guess you figured out by now where I get my good looks. Old Two-Face was my daddy, and the mummy was my mommy.
The next episode is Season 2, Episode 15, Mute Witness to Murder. I want to thank my mom for being on the episode with me.
Thanks for asking me. I had fun.
Thanks for being on. So yeah, thank you for listening to the Good Evening Kitties podcast. If you want to reach me, you can email me at goodeveningpod@gmail.com. You can like, rate, review, or subscribe on iTunes or anywhere else podcasts are found. There's also a Facebook page if you want to like that at the Good Evening Kitties podcast. If you can talk about any episodes you want on there and things like that. So anyway, again, thanks for listening.
I just had quite a scare. I actually thought my heart was beating.